Hello, my name is Rob Morrison. I'm with RTI Electronics. First, I would like to thank all of you for attending our webinar today, and I secondly would like to thank TechNation for giving us another opportunity to share our products with the industry. The title for today's webinar is An Introduction to Ocean Professional. In our last RTI webinar, we gave an overview of Ocean Quick Check, which is a module within Ocean Professional for doing exactly what its name implies. It is for doing quick measurements. Today, we're going to look at Ocean Professional, which is unique in its capabilities. To start with, I would like to answer a few questions you may have about Ocean Professional. What is Ocean Professional? Ocean Professional is a complete, powerful, and flexible software tool for obtaining, analyzing, storing, and reporting of your diagnostic X-ray QA measurements through customizable templates. Measured data is automatically collected into Ocean Professional using RTI's QA meters like the Black Piranha and the Cobia, or it can be entered via keyboard entry using other QA meters. Ocean allows you to obtain the data you want to measure and record through customizable templates. You can even create your own calculations, just like you would in Excel. Ocean provides industry standard analysis along with the flexibility to customize your analysis. Ocean allows you to link your data to an Excel spreadsheet with automatic filling of the spreadsheet as you take your measurements, along with the ability to store the Excel sheet with your Ocean template. All of your data is saved and stored in Ocean's industry standard database. Finally, Ocean can produce customized reports in hard copy or soft copy like PDFs for the facility you work at or for some other facility that you support, giving your results a customizable professional appearance. Who benefits by using Ocean Professional? X-ray service engineers who work for hospitals, service groups, ISOs, the U.S. military, and X-ray manufacturers. Medical physicists who inspect and oversee X-ray imaging devices. Local and state and U.S. government inspectors of diagnostic X-ray imaging devices. What is at the core of Ocean Professional? Ocean Professional has a robust database engine that's customized for entering your facilities, your departments, your rooms, your X-ray generators, your X-ray tubes, as well as other instrumentation, along with the ability to link your data to specific equipment. Ocean puts you in command of the performance of your X-ray imaging devices, which allows you to take action proactively instead of being reactive. It allows you to plan for that downtime. In our webinar today, my goal is to give you an introductory overview of Ocean Professional, which I hope will whet your appetite to learn more about Ocean, its abilities, and how it can help you perform your job in a time-saving professional way. I will seek to cover the following. Give just a quick overview of Ocean. Show the database structure of where your data is stored. Show you templates and how easy it is to build a template and add analysis to it. Do some real-time measurements. And finally, I'll show you how to print it out. Produce those reports. Without further hesitation, let's dive into Ocean. Okay, I'm going to start Ocean from my icon on my taskbar. One click, that's the nice thing about it being on the taskbar. This is the main screen of Ocean as it comes up. You can see across the top here, there are several tabs with ribbon bars. So this is the Measure tab with its ribbon bar. One thing to notice is you want to go into Quick Check, you can select the Quick Check icon here on the ribbon bar and go right into Quick Check. You've got a design menu. It's where you design your templates. You've got a data link. This is where you can set up your links to Excel. You've got an appearance, and this is where you can change the appearance in your templates, change font size, etc. You've got a reporting menu for doing your reports. There's a central database, which I won't spend any time on. Then there's the help, which gives you a full-fledged help with the reference manual in the system. In addition, you've got, for your database, you can import a complete database. So let's say you were changing computers and you wanted to export one and import it. You can import it directly in. You can do a complete backup. You can do a restore. So I'll go back over here to the Measure tab, and we'll drop down here to these tabs just below. There's a Measurements tab. There's a Library tab. And then there's this tab here which says No Measurement Loaded. When you load a measurement in, that'll fill this tab. So I'm going to start with the Measurement tab first. And this basically is your database. This is where your facilities are loaded in. So for instance, I've got RTA Electronics here, and I've got Small Town Memorial Hospital. And underneath this, it has all my departments, my rooms, my generators, my tubes. So if I take this RTA Electronics and just start to expand it out, you can see here it's got tells me over on the right side my facility, gives me all the information about the facility, contact person, etc. Then I've got a department here, which is Department 1, and then I've got a couple of rooms here. I've got a RAD room and a MAM room. So if I select the RAD room, come under here, RAD room, I've got the equipment that's in the RAD room, so I can look at that. I've got an X-ray generator, it's a Cetical. I've got a radiographic tube, which is a Siemens tube. If I take the X-ray generator and open that up, you can see the information on the X-ray generator. You've got a pull-down menu here for putting in different manufacturers. I've got my RAD tube here. Now, a nice thing about this is I can add several tubes to the generator. So if I've got an R&F room with 2 tubes, or I've got a vascular room or a specials room with 2 tubes, a biplane setup, I can have both tubes in here. And then the measurements specific to the tubes are saved with those tubes. So if I drop down here a little further, I've got the actual measurements. And if I select the measurement over here in the preview, it shows me that I've got all these specific templates in this measurement, and they're all under what's called a session template. So if I want to open that up, double click here. Now it's wanting to select a meter, but I can also go directly keyboard. I'll just choose keyboard. Now notice here, I've still got my tabs, measurements, and library, but now this third tab actually has radiography test listed because that's what the name of the session was. And underneath that, I've got several other tabs which all correspond to the title of each one of these templates. And notice here that I've got my status, that they were all finished for being measured, when the measurement was performed, and the results, that they all passed in this case. And if I look at each one of those templates, I've got my HVL. This is a traditional HVL. So I've got 5 measurements here where I've actually added filtration in. And if I look over here, I've got my actual, and under the analysis, I've got the actual measurement points graphed out. I've got the HVL measured and whether it passed or failed. Same with KV reproducibility. And in this, we did more than KV reproducibility. We've got exposure reproducibility and exposure time reproducibility as well. And you've got 6 exposures here. And if I take and look at my analysis, I can go down and each one of those is graphed out for me as well. If I take a look at the KV accuracy, there's 13 exposures or more here, I think, than 13. There's 14 exposures every 5 kV. And again, the analysis down here shows the actual measurements with the pass and fail lines in percentage here. If I jump over to the mass linearity, that gives me all my different mass stations and whether they were a large or small focal spot. And my analysis gives me a graph, and it shows me the milligray per MAS on each one of these. Finally, I've got a set of questions that were set up, a questionnaire template, and I've got some headings on each one of these, and it basically goes into, in this case, yes or no. I can also put in other questions that are numerical answers and so forth. So this is a complete template that's been measured, a session template with these test templates within it. And this gives me my site, so I can look and see where was this stored, the department, the room. So now, how did I get all of this? Where did these templates come from? They all come from my library. My library is where I have session templates stored, which are made up of test templates and checklist templates. So if I look at a session template and I go into these examples, and you can actually see the session template that we had measurements on. Here we are. If I come over, there's my rad room, and as you can see, there's all the templates there ready to go. If I were to right click on this and select new, it would load right in the template, and now everything's blank, as you can see. If I select reproducibility and I go onto a line, I can start to do my measurements right on the fly. So I'll jump back over here to library again. And where do these test templates come from? Well, again, down here under test templates and examples, I've got under radiography all these different test templates. There's the mass linearity, there's the rad HVL, there's the rad KVP accuracy, there's the rad reproducibility. They're all in the session template. Now, a few other items in the library here. Real-time display templates. Those are templates that are kind of like your quick check templates. They've got displays in them, they show waveforms and everything, but they're much more powerful in the sense that I can customize how they look, and I can add analysis to them. And with that real-time display template, I can take and use it on anywhere I want. I can come into a generator room and say, I just want to take some quick shots here, see what's happening, and I can run that template. It doesn't have to be saved to a facility and a room, etc. In addition, down here, I've got my checklist templates, which again, those are totally user definable. And then the last thing I've got is trend templates. And those can be very powerful in the sense that, let's say I cover 5 facilities, and in those 5 facilities, I've got 100 tubes. And I can take, and with all those measurements that I do on a regular basis, I can start to analyze the trends on my tubes. So it's a very powerful capability. It's something I'm not going to go into in depth here at all with this webinar. Okay, so we've got a little idea here of the measurement tab, the library tab. And what I want to do now is I want to go in and I want to actually show you how you can build a simple test template, okay? So one way to do that is to come over here to the Design tab, and I can set up a template. And I want to do a test template. I can just click on it, test template. It's going to come up, and it's going to give me a title, and I'll just say webinar. And I can give it a version number. That way, if I take and change things in it, I can give it a new version number, select next, and I just check the modality that I want to use. And as you can see, it's we cover everything from CT, mammo, panoramic dental, fluoro, and so on and so forth. I'm just going to do the radiography. Now, the wizard, and that's what I'm in here, is it's kind of a wizard to help me to build a template. I can select KV. I want to have a set value. And each one of these, as you notice, the wizard says columns. So each one of these is going to be a column, which allows me to change the values on every exposure. So I'm going to put in a set KV. I'm going to put in a set time. I'm going to put in a set MA. And I also want to take and put in a focal spot selection. This gives me all my set values for this template that I'm going to set up. In addition, obviously, I want to have some measured values. So I can go back up here to KV and I can select tube voltage measured. I can select time measured. And here it's asking me what I want to use for these measurements. Since I don't have anything hooked up, it gives me a broad selection. I'm just going to select the Piranha. And then I'm going to take and I want to have the actual exposure measured, my milliroentgens or milligray. And then I want to take and measure a quick HVL or a single shot HVL. I'll put that in. And then since maybe this is a digital unit, it's got spectral filtering, I want to take and also have my total filtration measured so I can see what's happening there. Once I've got those set up, if I hit the next button, the wizard brings me to what's called general settings. And under the general settings, this would be a setting that's going to be constant throughout the template, something that doesn't change. So in this case, I'm going to go back down here to conditions, and I'm going to add in a source to detector distance. Then I'm going to select the next button, and it asks me how many rows I want to create. I'm just going to do one right at the moment. Select finish. And now I've got the grid set up here, kind of like a spreadsheet in one sense. A couple of things to note. My SDD in inches, which is up at the top here, looks like it's kind of scrunched. This works just like Excel. Put your mouse over it, double click, spreads it out. I'll do the same thing here to the HVL and millimeter aluminum. So now I've got one row. I've got all my values, my set values and so forth. A couple of things I want to show real quick. Let's say I don't like the order that they're set in. I could take, for instance, this focal spot, hold my mouse down, drag it over here. You can see the two little green arrows, drop it. Now it comes before the set MA. So that's a nicety. I can take any one of these columns and move it around to anywhere I want. A couple other things I might like to do. Let's say I want to have some displays up there that are a little bit larger than these small text. So make it look like a quick check type template. So if I right click on the heading for set KV, I can select show display. And I can do the same for the set time, for the focal spot, and for the set MA. Now, maybe you've got a smaller screen than what I have, and you're saying, boy, this has taken up a lot of real estate. Well, one thing you can do is if you jump over here to the appearance menu and you select size and you select small, it brings the displays down smaller for you. Now, another thing I'd like to do is maybe I want to take a look at these on my display as well. So I can select show the display on the exposure. And maybe I don't want MR, maybe I would like milligray. If I right click on this, I can select units and I can change this to milligray. But even better, what if I wanted to have both milligray and MR show up at the same time? If I come up to the display that I've put up here and I right click on it, I can select clone this display. And all of a sudden, I've got an additional display of my exposure, both reading in milligray. But one thing I can do here is if I right click on this milligray and I select MR, then it puts it to MR. And as you can see, it added it here, another column at the end of the other columns. And one thing I can do is double click on the edge, kind of spread that out, and then I can drag and drop it over here. So I've got milligray and MR both in the same exposure. I don't have to think about Well, do I want milligray or do I want MR? I can have both. Then what I'll do is I'll take for the moment and just pull those displays off of the template. Now what I want to do is I want to take and add in some more rows here of all the measurements I want to do. So if I go back to the Design tab up here and I select Duplicate Row, and it asks me, well, how many rows do I want more? Well, I'll take 9 more rows, and I want them after the active row. Whichever one is selected in the blue line is across is the active row, and of course we've only got 1 row right now. I select OK, and it fills in all the rows for me. So now I've got 10 rows, and they're all set to 70 kV. And one of the things I'd like to do is I want to put in 100 milliseconds for time. I want to choose my focal spot, and I want to choose my MA for this. Well, something that you can do that's really very easy to do, if you select the first row as this is selected, and one thing I'll do here is I'll just take these bottom pieces and drag this down a little bit. And if I hold down the Shift key, just like if I was working with Excel, and I click here, should select all the rows. Once all the rows are selected, I can right-click on my column, and I can select Set Value for Selected Rows. And here I could put in 100 milliseconds, and it automatically fills it in for me. The focal spot, drop-down arrow here, I'll just put them all at large, and I'll do the same for the Set MA. Otherwise, I could have filled each one individually if I wanted to. Now, I don't want to have all 70 kVs, so I want to do some checks on kVs. So I'm going to put this one at 40. The next one, I'm going to put it 60, then 80, 100, and 120. One other thing here, as you note, I've got decimal place on the set kVs. I don't know of any generator where I can set the tenths on the kVs, so if I right-click on the heading and choose decimals, I can put that at 0 decimals. I can do the same for the time and for the MA. Now, I also need to put in my source to detector distance here. So if I click there and I put in 100, and I notice, well, I'm not doing inches. I want to do centimeters. Is that possible? Sure. If I right-click and I select units and I go to centimeters, it automatically takes the 100 inches and puts it at 254. So now I can just change that and put it to 100 centimeters. So now I've got myself a template set up. I've got some displays. I've got some parameters here that I'm going to set. And I'd like to take now and put some analysis into this template. If I want to have some kV accuracies, one thing I could do is if I select the whole template again and I do kV analysis, way to do that is I can right-click right in the analysis like I've chosen here, or I can come back up to the design. I can select Setup under Analysis, and I can select Add Analysis. So you can run from the ribbon bar or in the area just by right-clicking. Here I'm going to select Accuracy. You can see I can select all types of different analysis here. Quick HVLs, reproducibility, MA linearity. I'm going to stick with the accuracy. Select the next button on this wizard, and it comes up with 2 voltage, and it gives me a title I can have. I'm going to take and change out 2 voltage and just call it kV accuracy. Select next. Comes in and it specifies, it's asking you to specify the general acceptance limits. In this case, it's plus or minus 5%. I'm going to go with this. I know this may seem like a limitation, but we'll expand this a little bit further in a moment. I select Finish, and now I've got an analysis for KV accuracy, and it covers all of the measurements that I've got here. But I sit back and I say, well, I really don't need KV accuracy on 570 kV measurements. So if I come to my analysis and I right click, I can go to Modify Analysis or Trend. I can choose KV accuracy. And now, as you can see here in the analysis window, I not only have a difference in percent, but I can put in a difference delta, that is a plus or minus kV. Or even better, I can take and choose a difference percent plus an absolute. As we all know, manufacturers take and specify a lot of these generators so that they're plus or minus a percent, plus or minus a specific kV amount. And that can be gauged over specific ranges, whether it's MA or KV. And then one other thing I want you to note up here, if I go back up into the template, into the grid here, as I would call it, you notice I've got check boxes next to each one of these rows. Well, if I take and uncheck the check boxes on these 4 exposures, now I'm just doing KV accuracy on these 5 exposures, 40, 60, 70, 80, 100, 120. And notice the 70 is after the fact. It makes no difference. It'll put that all into the analysis. Then I can come back over here to the analysis, select the More button. And here I've got my KV accuracy. I could change that again if I wanted to. I can hit the next button. And this actually comes up and says define analysis results, whether it's passing or failing. And you can put in your own text here. Default is pass and fail. But let's say you were from the military and you like the words sat and unsat. You could put those words in here instead of pass or fail. In addition, I can put down to use the text color for the pass and fail. And let's say I don't like red and green. If I select my color, I've got a complete color map to do whatever color I desire. I select the next button, and then we come to defining the analysis result text. These basically are a lot of macros. I won't go into the details, but you can find right in the manual and in the help what each one of these means, and it gives you a lot of capabilities for your report generation. I'll select the Finish button, and then I will select OK. And now my analysis is for KV accuracy is for the exposures 1 through 6. Now let's say I want to add some more analysis. So if I select, I want to have an HVL at the 80 kV. I select that row. I again come over here, select Add Analysis. And this time I'm going to select the Quick HVL because this is an HVL done in 1 exposure. I select the next button, and it tells me here half value layer, it tells me it's on row 3. It's going to display that in my report. But one thing I like to add, what was the KV that it was measured at? Good reference. I select the next button, and now comes my accepted limits for HVL. There's a lot of different limits in here. If I drop my pull down menu, you can see I've got things for ACR, I've got FDA, and then I've got some defaults. And I can build my own default as well. But what I really like is I can choose the FDA manufactured on or after June 10th, 2006. It automatically puts that in. And one thing that's nice to see is at 80 kV, my pass result, I have to have at least an HVL of 2.9. I select Finish. And now, as you can see under my summary here, I've got a KV accuracy and I've got half value layer, 80 kV, row 3. Now, one more thing I want to do, I want to do some reproducibility results. If I select this row and then use my Shift button again, and now I've selected all 5 of those rows, I come over, right click again, add analysis, and this time I'll add reproducibility. And if I hit the next button, I can choose what parameter I'm going to be using for the reproducibility. In this case, I've got 2 voltage selected, but I'd rather take and just give me exposure. I can select next. And here comes up my minimum types of capabilities or accepted limits that I can put in. Ocean has many more, but I'm going to stick with just these right now. Maximum relative deviation from the mean, plus or minus 5%, and the maximum coefficient of variation, 10%. I select finish, and now I've got a reproducibility in my summary, and if I scroll down in these, there's my KV accuracy, there's my HVL, and here's my exposure reproducibility with the graph. So now you have it. I've created a test template with analysis in it. I've got a total of 10 exposures. And just a couple more things. I thought, well, I'd like to add a couple more things that I forgot to add. If I right-click here and say Modify Test Template, now I could add in not only the set KV and the measured KV, but also the difference in percent. And I could do the same with time. One more thing I'd like to add is, and that is under testing here, I've got a result that I can use. Let me select the next button and I'll select finish. And you'll see that these 3 columns just got added into my template. And now I want to move them around a little bit. So I can take this KV diff, put it over here next to the KV measured so I can see what the difference is there. And I can do the same with the time and put that over here and drop it. And I've got this result column. The nice thing about this result column is it tells me, based upon my analysis, what items would be failing in my template. So for instance, if I took a 40 kV shot and it was 32 kV, well, that's greater than 5%. It's going to put a fail here in the result column, and it's actually going to highlight the 40 kV being red right here, I should say, on the measured, showing me that that was failing. That's the beauty. You can see your results after each exposure as you take them, what's passing and what's not. So that's the end of giving you an overview of how to build a template. One thing I'll add is, how do I save that now that I've done it? If I go up here to the ocean icon and I select save, then I can actually put in a name for this. I can call it webinar test template. Select OK, and now it's saved. Another powerful feature in Ocean is, let's say I am covering 5 hospitals, but I've got 3 other engineers that I work with that have piranhas in Ocean as well. And now, do they have to go through all this process to build a template? No, they don't. If I come up here to the Ocean icon, there's a feature called Export, and I can select templates that I can export and send to them directly via email, and then they can import them right in, and they'll have the exact same templates that I have, and that means we're all doing the same measurements, which is very powerful. It keeps everything so that it's the same and reproducible. So that's the end of showing you how to make a quick template. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually do some measurements real time so you can see these templates in action. Okay, we're going to go and do some measurements now with these templates so you can get a feel for how Ocean works. So if I come here to my measurement area or measurements, you can see my database structure here. I've got my sites, I've got Small Town Memorial Hospital. In that, I've got a radiology department, I've got the OR, I've got the room 1 equipment, my Proteus generator, my rad tube. Here's my measurements. So if I want to set up a new set of measurements, I can right-click here, select New Session. Then it'll ask me, Okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to use an existing session template that's in your library, or do you want to create a new one? No, I'm going to use the existing session. Select Next. I'm going to take and use this template called X-ray QA measurements with MA. Double click on that. I'm the inspector, the company I'm with. I can hit Next. And then basically I can give it a session name. And what I will do is I'll put in Proteus so that I've got that for my reference. And it's got my date and my time. I can select Finish. It will now load up the complete session for me. And first it'll come up and it'll say select the equipment. Basically, I'm going to take and select the rad tube, and I'll just select this little check box. That's what I'm going to use for my checklist. Select OK, and up come my checklists. And here I can move rather quickly through. I've got all kinds of different things here I've thrown in, like does the Bucky tray move freely? Does the overhead tube have full motion, etc. So all I have to do is, because I've set up the question templates with default answers, I just can hit the next and move rather rapidly right down through them. Here I can take and select no, I can get a failure that way, and I'll hit next on this, keep one failure. And then basically here I can put in different answers. This was a heading that was final checks after generator calibration performed. And I can just put in here completed and hit next, and I can complete the next one, next, and then do the same thing and select finish. Now my general checklist is completed. I've got a result that I've got to fail, and that's again due to the fact that I've got that failure here on item number 7, which was, has the KV calibration been performed according to the procedure in the last 12 months? And then it tells me as a recommendation, perform KV calibration. If I move along here to my template for X-ray QA measurements, basically all I have to do is double click on the first row, and right now it's communicating to the Piranha, it's selecting everything up. I'm going to use the rad tube again, check off my box here, say OK, and basically it's all ready to go with my first exposure. So our first exposure is 40 kV at 100 MA and 100 milliseconds. And notice down here in the right bottom section under your summary for analysis, as we start to make these exposures, that will automatically fill out. Here's my first exposure. Moves on to 50 kV. As you can see, I've already got a pass there. And I take my next exposure. I move on up to 60 kV. Take the next exposure. And there I get my results at 60 kV. And you'll notice one other thing too, now down in my half value layer, that was where I did a half value layer test at 60 kV. So it puts that in at a pass with a half value layer of 2.34. We move on up to 70 kV. And then we move to 80. Now you'll notice quite a few things entered into the analysis pass, as you can see here. In this, we had a time measurement, basically at 100 milliseconds. We had our linearity at our MR per MAS at 100 MA and 100 milliseconds. We had our KV accuracy. We had a tube MA reproducibility, mass reproducibility, exposure reproducibility. Because I'm using this one exposure, number 5, combined with these other exposures down here, where I take 5 of them, and that's from row 20, 21, 22, 23. Those 4, along with that one shot, allow me to do lots of analysis on one exposure. I don't have to take many more of them to get the same results. So now we'll move on to our 90 kV. $110. And you notice that up in the displays, it actually tells me what my next exposure is going to be, so it makes it easy to know what my settings are. Now our next group of measurements is going to be time accuracy. So we're going to start at 5 milliseconds. Go to 10 milliseconds. As you can notice, since this has to do all with the timer accuracy, your time different percent is starting to show up in this column automatically. It actually takes me more time to do the settings on the generator than it does to have Ocean and the Piranha do its work. We go on up to 500 milliseconds. Next setting is 1 second. The last timer checks on 2 seconds. As you can see, you get your complete waveform showing you all 2 seconds. So now we move on to our reproducibility measurements. So I'll set my time back to 100 milliseconds and 80 kV. I'm at 10 mass, and I'll take 4 shots here. These 4 shots combined with that other one up above when I was checking kV will be used for all of my reproducibility analysis. And now we're going to do our MA measurements and our linearity. So I'm going to go to 10 MA and keep my time at 100 milliseconds. And this is on a small focal spot. As you can see, the mass linearity starts to pass already. Oh, look at that. Isn't that interesting? We got a failure at 20 MA, and a nice little feature here is I do have on my waveform, I've got a bar that I can move up and down. I can look at that in a zoom mode as well. But let's say I want to take that shot over again. Maybe there was something wrong with the generator or something here just on that one shot. So we'll reshoot again. No, that's a true fail. Obviously our kV is measuring properly, but the MA is doing something a little bit strange. Another note that's also interesting about having your waveforms, you can see how the radiation waveform mimics the actual MA waveform. So now we're going to move on to 25 MA and see if that station is okay. And it's nice, of course, you can see the fails here. Tube MA accuracy failure, mass linearity failed actually, 25 MA. That passes and actually brings our mass linearity into a pass. We used one of our other 100 MA shots, so we're jumping from 80 to 125 MA here. One thing I haven't noted is up here in the left-hand corner, you can see you have a green ready light that tells you when you're ready to make the next exposure, so it prompts you. Up to 400 MA. We've only got the one failure thus far, and our last exposure will be 500 MA. That's the max I can use on this generator. There you have it. I've done 40 exposures. I've got all this analysis automatically done for me. As you saw before, if I scroll down, I've got my graphs showing how the tube performed, the generator. There's my 20 MA failure. I've got my timer accuracy, and then I've got all my reproducibilities that were done. And then I've got my linearity, and then I've got my half value layers at 60, 80, and 120 or 100 kV. So I hope you find this interesting. Again, now what I want to do obviously is save it. I can come up here to the Save button at the top, select Save, and now it's saved. And if I look at my measurements here, you'll see there's my save that I did right there, 9:52 p.m. The last thing I want to show you how to do is get a report. So if we take the data that we've been measuring, and I've already set it up here, we've got all the data there. Remember, we've got the template, the general checklist. And if we come up to the reporting tab, you can see we've got several icons here on the ribbon bar. We've got preview, print, we've got a printer setup, we've got a sign, and a report template. I'm just going to go into preview. And this will actually bring up the complete report. And as it's noted here, webinar demonstration. And if I take and blow this up a little bit more so I get one on one page, I can scroll down through here. It's got all my information on the report. It's got the session summary, what's been measured and when it was done and the results. Then I come down here and I've got my actual first template, which was all the questions that I had. That's listed there for me. I come down to my actual measurements, and this gives me a summary of all my measurements, as you saw there in the analysis on the screen. As you can see, you've got that tube MA accuracy fail. And as we scroll down, this lists out all the measurements just like it was in a spreadsheet. So you can look at all those or have access to all of them. We scroll down a little bit further. I had check boxes next to all the actual waveforms. And so we got quite a few waveforms here. We've got all the kV accuracy waveforms that we measured those points on. And in addition, we've got the MA linearity. And you can see exposure number 27 was where we had that failure on the 20 MA station. And as we go down further here, past the waveforms, we've got all of our analysis listed out for us. So there's our kV accuracy, our tube MA accuracy. There's again, your 20 MA failure point. It tells us maximum inaccuracy is 18.1% at 20 MA. The limit was plus or minus 10%. Then we've got all of our exposure time accuracy. And then we move on to our reproducibility, where we had the kV and the exposure timer, as well as the tube MA, tube mass, and then our exposure reproducibility. Then we've got our linearity and our half value layers. And at the end here, it tells us what our test equipment was that we used to do the actual measurements with. So this was the black piranha. This was the actual MA probe that we used. So it gives you the whole report. From here, I can save it. I can print it out. If I want to save it, I can just select this PDF icon up here, select Save, go in, say OK, and then it's going to ask me where I want to put it. And I've already got it set up here. I can just say webinar demo, and select Save. It'll export all the pages, and then it'll automatically come up in my PDF viewer, as you can see here. So now I've got all the pages in PDF. Obviously, I can print out from here. I can also take and email it directly to someone right from here. I'll shut down the PDF. And I can also go over here and select my printer in Ocean, and whatever I've got set up for a printer, I can print directly to that printer. So that gives you a little bit of an overview of the report generation. Again, it's not in detail. There's a lot of other things you can do with regards to report templates and having your own logo on your reports for your facility and so forth, but that can wait for another time. I hope you've enjoyed this overview, this introductory overview of Ocean Professional. Thank you.
Rob, are you with us? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Perfect. I do just want to remind attendees you still have time to submit your questions. We're going to get through as many as we can in the allotted 60 minutes. Any questions that we aren't able to address, we're going to send over to Rob and the RTI team for them to follow up offline. But let's go ahead and get started, Rob. The first question I do have is, does RTI Ocean Professional software come automatically with every RTI Piranha?
In one sense it does, Linda. It comes, I'm sorry, not Linda. it comes with Ocean Connect, which is a subset of Ocean Professional. If you want to have Ocean Professional, you have to order up Ocean Professional as a separate item.
Good. Another question that we had is, what kind of support is available for Ocean Professional users?
Well, number one, there's a complete help index on the software itself, which covers the complete manual, as I noted in the video. And if people need more intimate support, if I should say that, they can take and email us there at the customer support email, or they can call us directly. And we're here from 9 to, or I should say from 8:30 to 5 Eastern Standard Time to help people out with any of the needs that they may have support-wise.
A quick question that came in is, can electrical safety data be transmitted?
I think what the person who's asking the question is they're taking and have to measure up specific electrical safety data on the particular room or the generator or whatever it may be, if I'm not mistaken in that. And yes, what they could do is on the checklist template, they could enter in specific lines for electrical safety, and they can put a pass-fail even on that as well. So that's very possible to do in the template.
Great. Another attendee would like to know, do I need an RTI meter to use the RTI Ocean software?
The answer to that is no. However, what you'd have to do then is you have to enter each of the parameters in via keyboard, but you can use Ocean Professional with any meter, as I noted in the presentation, and again, just enter the measurements in by hand, and you can use Ocean Professional with any meter.
Great. I really like this next question. Is Ocean Professional software updated? And if so, how often do the updates come out, or how often is this done?
The Ocean Professional software is typically, and I'll say typically, this is our norm, we like to give 2 releases a year, one around the June time frame and one around the December time frame. And there may be some service releases as well in between, but the 2 major releases are typically twice a year. And one of the nice things is if you have Ocean software, you can actually check for updates if you're on the web, if you're connected. And if you are connected, when you start Ocean, if there is a new update, it'll actually prompt you and say there is a new update of software available if you'd like to get it.
Great. This next question is a little more detailed. After selecting a segment of the KV waveform to zoom, how do you zoom out on a tablet?
There's a little magnifying glass icon up in the upper right-hand corner with a negative sign on it. If you select that, it'll reset the whole waveform.
Perfect. I think we have time for one additional question, and I love this one as our office all uses one system. So will the Ocean Professional work on my Mac computer?
That's a very good question. Ocean Professional is meant to work on Windows operating system. However, we do have some individuals, several individuals for that matter, that run Ocean on their Mac using Parallels. And some of them have even been able to get them to work with the Bluetooth on Parallels as well. Our support is obviously on the Windows OS, and that's what the software runs on. But again, we've got people who are running on Mac units with Parallels.
Great. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions. I do want to thank Rob and, of course, today's sponsor, RTI, for the demo and the information that was shared today. As always, TechNation and ICE Magazine loves to give back to the HTM community. So we want to give you another opportunity to win an Amazon gift card. All you have to do is complete the post-webinar survey that will appear on your screen shortly. You must complete the survey to obtain the certificate of attendance for the 1 credit from the ACI. If you do not see the survey, please email us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Remember, to learn more about today's sponsor, visit RTI Electronics website. That address again is rtigroup.com. For more information about upcoming webinars, you can visit technation.com/webinars. All right, TechNation and ICE Magazine, we're going to see you next week, 2 o'clock for the next webinar Wednesday. Please enjoy the rest of your afternoon.